Welcome to the Growingupbananas podcast, where we dissect the perks and tribulations of being bananas.
It's hard being yellow when I feel so white.
My name is Ethan. Kev sits next to me, and in many ways, I sit next to him. What do we have in store today?
Today we're discussing Asian remedies and superstitions, in particular ones passed down through our families. We have Arron, or Arrony as he likes to be known as, on Instagram. Let's get into it.
So the first one I know from my parents, they've always told me is never ever say you have no money because you talk yourself bad. So
Yeah, I believe that. You almost like you set yourself up.
yeah,
That's how you believe.
so they've always said pretty much even if you don't have money, never say you don't have money, and then you'll never be in that position where you don't have money.
Have you ever been guilty of that?
Oh, all the time, especially when I don't want to pay for stuff. What other ones?
Deep
I mean, there's ones like
It's like deep pockets, short hands.
yeah, that's me. There's ones like, and you can probably touch on this too, where you've always told don't have a mirror in front of your bed. Do you know why? I mean, you'd rather have it on the ceiling, wouldn't you? But
Is it Is it because you can see ghosts?
I think it is. I think it was because
Or your spirit.
so your spirit wakes up when you're sleeping, and if it sees itself, it scares you. It scares itself, and it's bad luck or
Okay.
something along those lines.
Do you believe in superstitions in general?
Not at all, no.
Okay, neither do I. So some of these are new to me.
But some of them are more practical and they make sense rather than being, I suppose, superstition. But
Yeah, that's right. I think with the mirror one in that case, yeah, you're right. I think it'd be weird to have one facing you as you wake up.
yeah,
Probably scare yourself a few times.
yeah, and then it all goes into like the feng shui and everything, which again I don't even know or believe. So
What else we got? Never throw coins away.
yeah, it's like throwing away your luck or your wealth, even if it's a 5 cents. Which I mean, do you keep money anymore, like actual cash?
I have a few coins. I'm slowly using them up in the vending machine. That's about it.
Yeah. So I suppose that one's a bit of an old one, but still makes sense. Don't throw your money away, even if it's coins.
Damn, I think I'm guilty of that. I had like two $1 bills in my drawer. You know how I moved recently?
Yeah.
I had that in my drawer for ages, and I think I just threw it away. I put it in the bin. So I think I'm guilty of that
Killing
already.
yourself bad luck, man.
Stuffed up.
There's another one where basically my mum would always tell us never give a knife as a present
Yeah.
or a gun, but I mean that's much harder to get and
Especially
give.
in Australia.
Yeah. Have you ever heard that one?
I haven't. What's that?
I think the symbolism is you're giving someone like a weapon and potentially they could do it for harm or self-harm. So it's like it's bad luck to give someone a knife. So I remember my cousin in South Africa, he gave me, it was a knife. It might have been a knuckle duster, which had a knife on it. And I thought it was really cool, so I asked him for it. And we've got it somewhere. I think my brother has it, but he then asked me for money. So I gave him like 10 cents or something. So he said, I'm not giving it to you, you're buying it from me. And then from there, I was like, oh, that makes sense now.
Okay. So he did that.
So if you ever give someone a knife or a gun in the
Make
future,
it an exchange.
it's got to be an exchange.
Even a small amount of money. Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
Another one which you brought up before, cleaning before Chinese New Year. How does that one work?
So basically, you're supposed to do all your cleaning before Chinese New Year, and then you're not meant to clean at all for, I think, a few days after Chinese New Year, because if you do, you're cleaning away all the new luck that you brought in.
And then cleaning before is, I guess, you
Just because your house is dirty, you clean it.
can't
Right?
clean after. Makes sense.
I mean, that one's practical too.
It is, yeah. Like I said, a couple of them are. We're going to miss a whole heap, but we've got a good long interview coming up later, so we don't take too much time.
Yep.
There was another one, drinking hot water after dinner. That was always one, and have you heard that one?
Are these less superstitions though? Oh,
It makes
I guess it's
sense,
remedies. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you're eating, and then cold water is going to solidify the fat, and I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you tend to drink a lot of hot water?
No, I usually drink tea, and it's not while I'm eating, unless it's yum cha. Yeah, I think when I'm usually eating, it's cold drinks, and I haven't really had that issue.
You do kind of feel better when you drink like tea
drinks.
or something like that, like after a meal, I find.
Yeah, I do.
So that one, again, pretty practical. And then we got the last one, which you can probably talk more to than I can. So like hot versus cold food.
The only food that I recall from my childhood was my mum making us eat bitter melon because it's supposed to be a cooling food.
I hate bitter melon.
Yeah, so do I. I hate it with a passion. She used to make it with like stuffed, I think, fish.
Okay,
Minced fish in it.
Could be alright.
Yeah, I liked eating just the fish. I just used to pop it out of the hole and then try not to eat the bitter melon.
Yeah, that was usually me as well.
She'd catch me and make me eat it anyway.
There was so Alex, my wife, her family are very much on this. So in terms of like if you're feeling it's like sort of run down, feverish, you don't then go and eat things like lychees or bananas because it's meant to warm you up. And I mean, it actually does. It's weird how certain foods and fruits can actually have
watermelon's another one.
Yeah, is watermelon? Is it a cooling?
That was hot.
Okay.
I mean, I feel cool when I eat it, but
yeah, I mean, because we usually put it in the fridge, but
yeah,
I think it is hot. But yeah, there's all those sorts of the hot foods and the cold types of foods, which I never really got, but kind of makes sense.
But yeah, let us know in the comments if there's any others that
there's so many we were gonna miss, but
probably missed.
So we got Arron, as he likes to be known as, coming through to spend some time with us, and he's gonna give us some really good insights into his life and slightly different, I suppose, topic or different episode from normal, but it'll be good to hear his side and let's get into it.
Yeah. Let's go.
So we're very lucky to have Arron-y on Instagram. If anyone wants to check him out to share some time with us today, he's a tall, good-looking, and well-accomplished man in his field. How are you today?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's good, man. I guess let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little about your family.
So my family background's a little bit different. Not many people actually, or a lot of people find actually pretty interesting, but essentially my family's from Papua New Guinea, PNG. So grandma on my mum's side, during World War II, when the Japanese invaded China, they actually fled. So she fled to Hong Kong, took refuge in Hong Kong, I think, while the British were still in power over there, and were there for a few years, but actually took a boat down to PNG. So they landed in Rabaul, which is up in the north of PNG, and there's actually quite a lot of PNG Chinese people there at the moment. But yeah, she grew up there. She met my grandfather up there, and they did business. So mum was born there, and dad, he's actually from what used to be called Burma, but is now Myanmar. And he was a similar story as well. So he came from a poor family, a family of I think 7 or 8 kids, and they just they were living there, but politics changed in Myanmar and essentially pushed out all the non-Burmese people. Ended up in Macau. So dad found opportunity in PNG, and that's where he met my mum.
Yeah, right. So I guess culturally, are you guys Chinese?
I would say ethnically, Chinese. We don't have any mix. So I'm pure Chinese, but I think it's where I've grown up is really different because I feel like I don't have that many ties back in Asia other than on my dad's side.
Yeah. And then you guys, so obviously your mum and dad met in PNG. Did they come to Australia before you were born, or how did that work?
Yeah, so during my mum's childhood, she actually would fly up and down. So while PNG was still a part of, or still under Australian governance, mum would fly up and down. Mum actually went to St. Peter's boarding school in Brisbane.
Oh, right.
So she essentially grew up here, also grew up in Redcliffe. So mum's side's been pretty well established in the Brisbane area for quite a long time.
Sorry, I may have missed it. Were you born here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sunnybank.
They migrated from PNG to Brisbane.
Yeah, so mum's side was mostly based in PNG, but they would fly up and down all the time.
Back and forth.
Mum went to boarding school in Brisbane when she was in high school. So dad after he married my mum, had kids, and then moved to Australia for my brother and my education, he decided to semi-retire, but I think we all knew that he didn't want to because he was only in his 40s at that time.
Right.
But he came here to get his citizenship.
And what sort of business did they do in PNG? Because I know just in dealings that I've had, PNG is such a naturally rich country in terms of resources. So there's so many opportunities.
Yeah,
there.
definitely. But unfortunately, they weren't in the natural resources industry. PNG, I think in the Chinese PNG community is really small, and I think these families, their history dates back quite far. I think, for example, like my family, during the war, and it's a very close-knit community, but a lot of them actually used to run retail stores,
Okay.
supermarkets and things like that. So that's what my family was in.
Yeah. And then fast forwarding, so you born in Australia, siblings?
Yeah, I got one older brother.
Yeah.
5 years older, so we were both born here. But while we were younger, before school, we would fly up and down as well,
right.
back to PNG.
Do you guys get along well?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's pretty big age gap, so I'm assuming at times it probably would have been a bit of gap there, but the gap always closes
Guess
when you
as
get
you
a
get
bit older.
older, that gap doesn't matter.
I mean, we're 5 years difference. I mean, he's massive. He's 2 meters.
So your dad must be huge too, because if anyone doesn't know Arron, as I said at the start, he's a tall man. So does he play basketball? What does he do with his height?
No, actually, he never played basketball. He did a bit of swimming, actually. Dad, he's not tall, actually, so we don't know where we get it from.
What the heck?
It's the PNG,
PNG,
the water from
the
your
water.
parents.
Yeah, everyone says it's either
the
the
air.
stuff in the water in PNG, and my dad used to always say he would feed us kangaroo meat.
Taking
I'll have
notes.
to try that then, eh?
Kangaroo meat. I've only had that once. So
I steered a bit of kangaroo when I was a poor student. One, because it was cheap, but two, because it's really high in protein.
it's
and
lean
low
as
fat.
well.
Yeah.
So if you can get over the taste, you can kind of...
I heard if you
Get
eat too
the-
much, though, it's not good for your heart. But I don't
I'm
know
sure.
what's too much.
Yeah, that's true.
Damn.
Cool, man. So your brother's massive, 2 meters. He must stand out physically and all.
Yeah, he definitely does, and he's been tall most of his life. I mean,
Yeah.
he's always been the tallest in the grade, I think even through primary school and high school, so you just spot him a mile away.
And then, I guess, so school then for you guys. Let's talk about you first. Did you go to predominantly Asian school, or how did it work out?
Yeah, so I actually went to a private Christian school my whole life. And I think my experience was, now that I actually reflect back on it, was pretty interesting.
Yep.
I started there from grade 1, and I think I was probably one of maybe 4 Asians.
Yeah,
out
similar
of
to what Kevin and I had.
Yeah, out of maybe like 100 kids.
Yeah.
But even those Asians in the class, we were basically ABCs. We all grew up in Australia or either born here. So, and I think when you're a kid, you don't really take your race or your ethnicity into account. I mean, for my best mates, 4 guys, I mean, they're all Aussie. We all got along. Race was never a thing, but I think it's as you grow up and you discover like who you are, I think is really when you start to notice things. But in saying that, I didn't have a bad experience at school. I think I got along well with everyone. But then there were 1 or 2 things that people would say which weren't necessarily racist, but kind of like when I think about it in hindsight, it's like, oh well, like that actually, like that's something to do with my race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's probably coming from ignorance more than, racial superiority or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, an example is I used to hang out with a bunch of friends, and I don't really recall the context, but someone said something along the lines of like, "Oh, Arron, he's basically white." So
I've had that too, actually.
and
basically
like,
white.
I think in the moment you don't really think much of it.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, oh yeah, like I think personally, I don't think I really hold too many very strict traditional Asian cultures, and I think it's just because I've grown up in Australia. and I think my values are. I honestly feel like they're a bit more aligned to Western culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just in that situation. I was just like, I am basically white. Like,
Yeah.
I get that all the time, like in the workplace as well. They're like, "Oh, Ethan," and I'm like, I don't know. I play the race card as a joke. If there's like a Chinese meeting or something, like, "Oh yeah, I'll go," and then somebody will be like, "What do you mean? You're pretty much white." And again, you don't really know how to take it. So yeah, have that as well.
It's a bit of tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
yeah.
So what was the experience like then at school, race aside? Were you obviously, looking at you now, like you said, pretty successful? Were you quite academic?
I wouldn't say I was a top achiever. I think as I progressed to the more senior years, I did focus more academically. And I actually wanted to be a doctor through high school. I did all three sciences.
Yeah.
The only one I didn't do out of the 6 was Maths C because I was absolutely terrible at maths.
I'm glad you're admitting it. Yeah, no, me too.
I think I got like a C- in Maths B. Really just scraped. But I did enjoy a bit of sports, but I think as I got older, I did spend a lot of my time focusing on academics. And I think it really was just knowing that I needed to prepare for the future.
Yeah.
And I think it is that pressure as well.
Yeah, is that coming from family? Is it coming from yourself? A bit of both?
I think it's a bit of both. I was really lucky. My parents never put the pressure on me to say, you needed to become, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. They always would say to me, so long as you're happy, so long as you enjoy what you're doing, then we're happy. And I think that's what really gave me a lot of comfort, finding out what I wanted to do in my life. But it just so happened to be that I wanted to become something that a lot of Asian parents want their kids to become.
Worked out well for me.
Yeah, so
I guess on your parents then, they didn't give you, or they didn't put a lot of pressure on you guys. What did your brother end up doing? Did he do something similar?
So my brother was actually, during high school, he was really into music.
Okay.
He used to play the saxophone and the piano. And that was just I assume it's out of passion because he loved doing it. He was in the school band and things like that. And Mum would always say, I would always think that you would end up in music, but he actually ended up becoming a high school teacher.
Okay. Nice.
Back in the school that we went to. So he's
cool.
Science teacher.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, he's given back to the place that got it all started for him.
Yeah, and I think it's really stemmed from, his love for mentoring young people, especially in church and things like that. I think he really had a passion to see young people grow and discover who they are.
Yeah. So my last thing then on school, did you ever feel out of place? I know you said most of your friends, your close friends, are white. Same with me. I think Kev, until he went to McGregor, most of your friends were white as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very similar.
Did you ever feel out of place? So for me, I guess I'll give you a quick story. You be in a group and in the back of your mind, if everyone's playing up, the Asian guy will stand out just purely because he's Asian. So would the black kid. So would, the albino kid, just for that. So in the back of my mind, I always had that thought. Did you ever feel out of place at any point?
I actually don't. I don't have any recollections of feeling out of place, and I think I'm really lucky because I know that people don't have the similar experiences that I do, and I think people who I grew up with during school were quite welcoming, and I think race and things like that weren't really an issue for us.
Yeah,
and I definitely felt like there was a bit of a difference between an Asian who's born in Australia and grows up with Western values versus an Asian who possibly maybe comes from overseas and
they're carrying a bit of an accent. They still
you definitely see international students, for example. School had a big international student presence, and I definitely saw that there wasn't assimilation there.
Yeah.
But for me personally, being someone who grew up in Australia from grade 1 at the same school, knew all the people, like I really didn't feel like there was that issue of race or being singled out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at home, do you guys speak English? Do you speak a second language?
Interestingly, no. So we speak
Yes.
English.
I feel it. You too, you don't speak English.
Yeah, we just speak English.
Yeah.
Family speaks English at home. My parents speak Cantonese. They tried to teach us, but we didn't really learn.
Was there
me? They never took us to any schools. They just tried to teach us at home, but...
Well, my parents tried to teach me Cantonese.
Yeah.
And I just think at that age, I just wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, I think, was it because I, grew up in a Western culture where I didn't really need to speak Chinese because...
Yeah. You didn't see the value of it.
Yeah, and I mean, like all my cousins, we all speak English to each other. My aunties speak English to each other. My parents tried to send me to Mandarin school in Runcorn. They're like 9 a.m. Saturday morning. But again, like I didn't really find interest in it. And the funny thing is, like, I think I was maybe so disinterested that my Chinese school teacher used to have to write my homework in English.
Yeah, that's kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Because a couple of episodes ago with Alex, we were talking about our experience. She went to Vietnamese and Chinese school. Same with me. And if you're doing it at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, kids at that age, this is the last thing you want to do. So it's probably the way that we were taught.
Yeah.
It just didn't, like...
The delivery of it.
Yeah, whereas now, you've got YouTube. You can probably hire a private tutor or something like that.
Yeah.
Might be a bit different. But yeah, there's no way kids... Like, I'm glad we're all in the same boat and we haven't had to go through all that and do it, so...
Yeah, but otherwise, other than English, I mean, my family speaks quite a fair few languages.
Okay.
Mum and dad would speak Cantonese. Dad could speak Mandarin because we're from PNG. Family could speak Pidgin as well, which is the native language over there. Mum, when she was young, she was taught Hakka, which is another dialect of...
Yeah, my mum's Hakka.
Yeah. So she speaks that. And then, like, my dad's side also would speak another dialect, Siap. And then because Dad grew up in Burma, he could speak some Burmese too.
Jeez, have you ever considered learning a second language now as an adult?
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I regret not learning Chinese.
Yep.
And I think being a lawyer, Chinese would have been so helpful. I mean, I work with a few overseas banks as clients, and the first thing they kind of ask is, do you speak Chinese?
Arron Chan. No. Then why the hell are you on our account?
I think sometimes when you get like Asian clients and they see my signature and my surname, they're like, oh, yes, like you can converse in Chinese. I'm like, oh, sorry. English only.
I'm exactly the same because I wish I'd put a bit more effort into it, because not just for work as well, just travel and things, and it just adds another string to the bow.
Yeah,
something else about you that you have
opens doors. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Dad's side, they're in Macau, and Grandma, she's no longer with us, but she couldn't speak English, so. Yeah. Dad used to always try to take us back, at least once a year to see her. But it was really difficult to converse because she can only speak Cantonese, and then I can only speak English.
I had a similar experience. Yeah, all my grandparents didn't speak English well, so I didn't really get to know them.
Yeah, and I think that generation is really important to, learn from their life experiences. I mean, sometimes I think about it, like my grandma on my mum's side. She tells us stories of the war and things like that, and when PNG was actually invaded by the Japanese in World War II, and the stories about how they had to hide in tunnels, and how the Japanese used to sometimes protect them or put them in underground tunnels, and they would hear bombs going off and just stuff like that. I mean, I think for us, we will probably never live those experiences.
And we can't really even relate because it just sounds like...
And to hear it firsthand is something special too.
Yeah, definitely. And like, for example, she has like this pretty big scar on her leg, and I've actually never asked her where it was from. And one day she was telling me a story about it, and she said, yeah, like it was something to do, like a bomb went off or something, and she almost had to cut off her leg.
Oh, shit.
Stuff like that. So I'm thankful that my grandma here, on my mum's side, can speak English, and she still yells at me and says that I need to learn Cantonese.
So how does it go then when you see your family sort of strewn throughout Asia? How does it go? Because I'm assuming not a lot of them speak English, so communication. How does it go when you actually go visit them?
Yeah, so communication is always a bit of an issue, I think, with the older generations when we go visit.
Yeah.
My cousins, I mean, they can speak English a little bit. They definitely do go out of their way to at least try to converse with me in English. But there's always going to be that language barrier between us. But I think I think now that I'm older, kind of wish I think I learnt Cantonese and Mandarin at least to the basic level. I mean, I can understand it, but the dialect that PNG Chinese people speak is a little bit different to, say, like Hong Kong Cantonese or Macau Cantonese. And I think it's just over time, generations, you mix words with other languages and the pronunciation gets lost.
Yeah. And I think Kev made a good point earlier where it's at the time when you're young, you feel like we were in Australia, why would I need to speak Chinese? And I was always at that school of thought growing up, I'm like, just work on my English because that's all I'm going to need. Grow older and you learn more things and experience more. And you wish you went back and paid a bit more attention to that.
Yeah, and you get the typical aunties, like family friends, aunties and uncles who always tell you should learn Cantonese, and you're Chinese, you should know how to speak Chinese. And I do regret it, but at the same time, it's also like, will I use Chinese or Cantonese, Mandarin in my day-to-day life?
Yeah.
And honestly, I think I would probably say very little.
Yeah.
Just given the way I've grown up, but I think it's something that I hope that maybe in my future I can probably teach my kids to, at least understand it a little bit or be aware of it, and that's their culture or their heritage.
So on that, man, like sort of one of the last things about your upbringing, do you guys still hang on to many of the Asian traditions? Like, would you say, I know you said culturally you're probably more Australian, ethnically you're Chinese. Do you guys, do you still hang on to many of the Chinese side of life?
I do think there are, like in your day-to-day life, there are subtle things that, example, Mum would say that are very Asian.
Yeah.
But really, I think as us, like my cousins, we've gotten older, I definitely think that we don't celebrate, like, example, a lot of the Asian festivals and things like that. As much anymore. For example, Chinese New Year, I mean, we definitely know when it is, we still sometimes meet up, but it's not, honestly, I think New Year's is a bigger celebration for our family than it is Chinese New Year. So we definitely know when these festivals are coming around, but I don't think we make the effort to get together and celebrate these festivals, for example, or Mid-Autumn. We didn't do anything. But so I think definitely culture, definitely more Western aligned. And I think it's important though that we still acknowledge, I think, those traditions, because I mean, that's our heritage.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it. It's still a part of you, and whether you like it or not, or you actually honor it, it's still going to be somewhere in, I suppose, the back of the mind.
Yeah, and I think personally for me, I wouldn't want future generations in our family to forget about it, because that's who they are and where they're from, and that's their heritage. And I think it's important that you don't lose touch of it.
Yeah. So, mate, in terms of yourself now, so as far as I can tell, you're into the finer things in life. You like good food and, watches and travel and things like that. Where did that all start from? Is that passed down through your family, or is it something that you've yourself wanted to experience?
Good question. I honestly think it's a little bit of half-half. Dad, like I said earlier, he didn't come from a wealthy family. He worked really hard to support us and give us what we essentially what we wanted, what we needed for a comfortable life here. And he was very much the very typical Asian mentality of, I work hard and I give you the resources that I need to give you in order for you to succeed in life.
Yeah.
He's definitely not the emotional, like I love you, you're all that kind of stuff. But he very much showed his love through working hard and giving us what we wanted and giving us life experiences. So I think from that, half of it was from that, where he did give my family, my mum, my brother and I, a bit of the finer things in life. I think a lot of people don't get to experience. I mean, he loved to travel, so he would take us everywhere. I probably traveled most of the world by the time I was 16.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah, so we would go on holidays.
Any notable places? Or
honestly, everywhere.
Yeah, you get a little bit of something everywhere you go, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it would also be like go back to visit grandma in Macau and then pick a place where you want to go. So it'd be like Hong Kong, Macau, then let's go to New York.
Yeah.
Let's go to, been to China like 4 times, 5 times. So he really was just like, I want to show you the world. These are the things I never got, but, I want to set you up for the future. So I think that kind of gave me an insight into the finer things of life.
A bit of a taste and then
then
run with it.
Yeah, and then I think it just developed into an interest of mine. Dad's always very much, like Dad used to wear a Rolex all the time, but he always says that. So he used to work in PNG. When he used to come down here, he would be like, when I come back to Brisbane, I'm the garden boy.
with his Rolex.
Yeah. So he was really humble about those things, but and one thing he used to always say to us was, and I honestly think it's a big thing of his upbringing is there are a lot of wealthy people in PNG from business, obviously, and if I wanted something really expensive, I wanted to buy, say, a Swiss watch, he would say, why do you want to buy that? We're not those kind of people. But then I think his unconditional love is, he would help me out and buy one. I mean, he helped me negotiate my first tag when I finish uni. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of suspected as much in terms of it's come from your parents, like the way, your style and the things you've been able to do. And then, like I said, you've run with that now as a working man.
Yeah, and I think, it's so easy to to kind of not take advantage of it. What's the word?
Take for granted?
Yeah, take for granted.
Yeah.
Those things that your parents give you, especially when they give you those kind of opportunities. I mean, a perfect example would be I went to the UK to study law for almost a little bit over half a year. And
oh, nice.
I would basically just travel all the time during my exchange, and Mum would be like, shouldn't you be studying? We sent you there. You're supposed to be studying, but you're instead frolicking around Europe without a care. And the dad would be like, let him be.
When you do exchange as well, it's either pass fail, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I've heard very similar experiences with other friends and people.
Yeah, so
if you just need to get that 50% and then travel the rest of the time.
I feel like that's the point though. You get to do an exchange, you get set off, in this case the UK. You're that's the base, and you've got all these beautiful countries you get to visit.
Yeah, so
quite affordable.
Yeah, Dad was always just like, let him be, let him travel while he's there and things like that. But I think Mum at the same time was very much like, you went there to study, you should be studying and focusing on your stuff. I mean, you can still travel, but not as much as you were.
Yeah.
But
worked out in the end, I guess.
Yeah.
Got that pass and moved on.
Yeah, so just stuff like that, experiences like that. I mean, I don't think many people could, really say. I think a lot of friends who did exchange during the time, even saved up, worked during uni, saved up, and then went. But I was really fortunate enough that Dad was able to fund most of it.
Oh well, it's like you said before. It's not about, it's being grateful for what you have, and fortunately, it was you. So just enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think he wasn't against it because it was for education. So, and he always says education is number one.
So Arron, now you're a hotshot lawyer, making it in the big leagues. Working for a good firm and all that. Why did you start law? I know you spoke about you wanted to do med first. Then how did you stumble your way into law?
Yeah, so like I said, did all three sciences during school, with the idea that I wanted to do medicine. I actually ended up going into pharmacy because I didn't get high enough.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't get a high enough OP to go straight into med. So my plan was to do post-grad med. And I actually didn't want to do a science degree because I wanted to back up. Just in case I didn't get into medicine, I had a career to fall back on. So I don't know, honestly, like three months into pharmacy, I was like, I hate this.
Yeah.
And I was like questioning whether I really wanted to do health or science.
What did you hate about it?
Honestly, I just think it just wasn't what I expected.
What did you expect?
I think it might have been just the first year subjects when you do the foundational chemistry, statistics, and all that stuff. And I already said I hated maths. I did terrible in it. So me having to do a university statistics subject, I know a lot of people think it's easy, but
What did you do stats for pharmacy? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
why? I guess there's numbers and things. That's stats.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're making the drugs, I guess there's
percentage.
Anyway,
Percentage
I don't want to degrade pharmacists, but cool. So cool. So
kind of reevaluated myself what I wanted to do. I actually thought maybe I'll move into OT, occupational therapy, and then with the intention still to go to medicine. But I think at that point in life, I really needed to make the decision: am I going to stick with this medical path or
pursuit?
or change completely? So I thought about it, and I just thought, too long. And is it really what I want to do for the rest of my life? So interesting, I did legal studies in high school as well. So that was probably honestly my second preference. So then just decided to give law a go, switch. And I think I found my passion and what I really enjoyed.
So from that point on, that's when you switched your degree and started studying law. So before that, the only time you touched law was in high school.
In high school, and there's no lawyers in my family, nothing like that. So, but I did enjoy legal studies in high school, and I think that's probably was like a little taste as to what potentially could be a future career.
And we don't have to talk about what you do now or anything like that in terms of what areas and where you're working, but how have you found now, a couple of years in post-admission, how have you found the actual journey? Because I get really mixed reviews from friends and people.
Yeah, so I actually honestly think my career and my journey, my professional journey, has been a pretty interesting one actually, and I think it's quite different to a lot of people that I've met. So when I actually started in a small boutique firm. It was still national, but no one really knew its name. Pretty small. And I think I was a pretty ambitious person. I wanted to, move up in the ranks. I wanted to, go to bigger firms and things like that. So I eventually got the opportunity. So then moved to a mid-tier, worked there for a little bit, then went to a top tier, and then actually decided to go back to the mid-tier. But just being able to experience, I think, all three tiers was pretty eye-opening actually, because I think what I found is, especially in the top tiers, it's a lot of people come through the grad program, but don't necessarily have that experience of working in those smaller firms. And it'd be interesting because people would just naturally ask me, oh, like, did you come through the grad program? Where did you do your grad? And I actually never did a grad program. I had the opportunity to become a solicitor straight away out of admission, which was really lucky. But yeah,
how did that come about?
So in the firm that I was working for, the boutique firm at the time, I got along really well with my boss, and she just offered me something, and I was happy to take it. So yeah.
So what do you notice the difference? I guess I'm not in law at all. So between like the three tiers, now that you've been in all three, what did you like and what did you dislike?
Starting in a top tier firm for those who need some guidance. What did you see starting at the top?
Well, I mean, I think for every law student, it's the pinnacle of...
It is, yeah.
You've made it in a top tier. It's the biggest firms, the biggest deals, the brightest people. And really, law students, I think, really define your career as making it, as getting into one of those, because it's so competitive these days. Yeah. And I remember when I was a law student interviewing for clerkships and things like that, one of the partners who interviewed me in a firm said, nowadays before it was you just needed 2 degrees to make you stand out, but now it's 2 degrees extracurricular and 3 languages to make you stand out.
Right. So we're screwed on the language.
Yeah.
They take 6 extracurricular
activities.
Yeah, that might make up for a language. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a naturally competitive field.
Yeah.
While you learn, you sit next to the best people, you learn from the best partners. They're ranked number 1 all the time. But on the flip side, there's the pressure that comes with it.
Yeah.
And I think behind all the glamour of, the beautiful offices, the nice suits, and everything, it's really not that glamorous, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I take my hat off to people who are chasing a career in that area of law, because it's definitely a highly rewarding one. But personally, for me, I just found that it wasn't what I wanted to do in the long run. So that's the top tier space.
Before you go to the next tier, I'm proud of you for seeing that, realizing what it was, and it wasn't aligned with what you wanted or what you thought you needed, and then you took yourself out of it, and then moved on, because you could have been bloody depressed and
slugging away at it,
hating your life. And what's the point? Yeah, you got the good clients, and
was it the lifestyle that you didn't like, or what was it? Was it just the
attitude? I think it was a combination of things. I mean, there was things going on in my personal life as well, but it was just the pressure of, personally, I think I personally put a lot of pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And it was that pressure to perform
at that level.
Yeah.
Because you're at that level.
And when you know that everyone around you is so smart, you're working with hand-selected people who... sometimes some of them have PhDs in law who like sitting next to you, and you're like, oh, what have I done with my life? I mean, like one of my colleagues, he's ex-SAS, he's and a senior associate, and I was just like, holy crap, like what am I doing with my life? Like
it's like that Johnny Kim dude. Do you remember?
He's the astronaut.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
He was at work for NASA. He was like a surgeon, and then he did something. And he was a lawyer.
It was like surgeon,
covering like 3 of the STEM, basically.
So that's the kind of people who like that top tier.
Yeah, and I mean they're great people. Don't get me wrong, really fantastic colleagues. But personally for me, it was just is that what I wanted in my career? Is that what I want to chase?
Yeah.
And I realized that it wasn't. Yeah.
Cool. So then you at least you can say you've done it, you've experienced it. Other than a lot of people like, oh no, I don't want that, just because they think they'll actually never get there. You've actually been able to do it. Then going back to a mid-tier firm, what did you see there?
Yeah, so just going back to top tier, I just honestly thought I'd personally never end up in a top tier, but moving to mid-tier, I mean, there's still the long hours. but the great thing I really liked was that it's a good mix of work. You still deal with some of the biggest clients in Australia, but then you're also dealing with people who need a little bit more hand holding and guidance in the work because they're maybe not so familiar with that area. And I think you still get the pressure, but I think not to that level of a top tier.
It's a good mix between bit of work-life balance, but then also you've got the clients, you've got the big money that's floating on the desk.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's really what I wanted to do. And moving back to my firm I am at now, it wasn't an easy decision to leave the firm I was at. It was a really thought through decision, not just in the moment, but in the long term, as to what I wanted in my career and where I wanted to grow professionally. And I think I saw myself in that mid-tier space. And, I think I'm comfortable to say now that mid-tier is where I want to be, at least for the near future. And I think maybe, 5-6 years ago as a law student, I don't think I would ever be saying that. Because like I said, every law student wants to strive for being right at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the old, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it's a good sign of like a maturity, I guess, in your mindset and your thinking.
Yeah, and it's really just, what I think, I had to think what's best for me and my future and what I wanted. And, sometimes the biggest bucks in the industry, it's not the prettiest. I think
they get paid for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, behind it is a lot of hard work, and I take my hat off to those people.
Yeah, and then where you started things off in a smaller boutique firm.
Yeah, so smaller firm, same kind of industry, like same practice area. Worked with good old Richie. So,
friend of the show, Richard.
Yes, he actually reached out to me after I finished my exchange in the UK.
Okay.
And was like, "Hey, you want a job?"
You owe him a little bit then.
Yeah. Yeah. So really good experience there as well. I think the good thing was that because you don't have so much structure in a boutique firm, you're able to, as a junior, I think get exposure to quite a lot of stuff. And I think I learned a lot that way. And I don't regret the career path I took. And I think maybe it did take me a little bit longer than some others, that if you do, straight grad program. But yeah, I don't regret it.
Cool, man. And then like the area of law, you're enjoying it. You foresee yourself sticking at that for quite a while, or? Yeah,
so no, I really enjoy it. I just fell into it. Didn't study it at uni. It's actually banking and finance. So, like I said, I hate numbers, but thankfully I don't need to do number crunching.
Yep.
Fell into it. I love it. It's a little bit of everything. I don't think I'll change in the near future. I think I'm a little bit too far into the practice to switch over now anyway.
So we've spoken to a lot of Asian women on this podcast, and a lot of them talk about the pressures of being not just a woman, but an Asian woman. So, honor the parents and respect, and, you can't sort of deviate too far from what's expected of you.
Yeah.
I don't think we've spoken enough about the pressures of being a man, and then, to that, an Asian man. So I guess if you look at it, to be a man of high quality or stature, there's so many things these days that people are expecting of you. You've got to be good looking, you've got to be in shape, you've got to be successful, you've got to be well traveled, all these things. Is that something that you've ever seen where people are feeling that pressure these days of trying to tick all those boxes?
Yeah, no, I think society definitely puts the pressure on to look a certain way, perform a certain way, have a certain career, have your life sorted by a certain age. But personally, for me, I think in terms of Asian values, there's still always not really an expectation, but an understanding that I think the man is the breadwinner. And I don't think, I'm not saying that women shouldn't be, but I think in Asian culture, that's very much still what it's like. And I can say for my family, that's what it was like. Dad worked and mum raised us. And that goes with all my aunties and uncles as well. So I think it comes back to, yourself. And I think your security within yourself.
Yep.
I definitely think if you struggle with insecurities, you will succumb to society's pressure. Because you feel like you need to be a certain way or a certain person, speak a certain way, have your life sorted by a certain time. But yeah, I think really it's just finding that confidence in yourself and who you are as a person. And I think defining your own path and knowing that you find fulfillment in the decisions you make. And not being defined by what society tells you is the right way or the ideal lifestyle.
Yeah, I fully agree. I love that. Have you ever felt or have you ever struggled with self-confidence at any point?
Yeah, I think so. And I think everyone struggles with
times,
it. Yeah, at times. I mean, I think example for career, it was, when I was trying to decide what to do, I was like, no, I don't know if law's going to work out, but, take it as it comes, and experience it. But I think there's always times people struggle with self-confidence, but it's kind of maybe taking a step back and looking at it in the bigger picture and ask yourself why you feel, insecure about something, or why do you feel that way? Why do you want to feel a different way? But I think it's life's journey, and it's all about working on your weaknesses and making them stronger.
And it's also about being grateful for what you do have rather than looking at what you don't have, your shortcomings.
Definitely.
Good point.
I think and then I guess for a lot of people who aren't able to see the forest from the trees, what advice would you guys tell them when...
Can't see the forest from the trees.
Yeah, never heard that one.
It's a great saying. But basically, how would you... What would you? How would you tell people to block out the noise? So you're seeing it on social media, seeing people living these glamorous lives, traveling, whatever it might be.
That's one.
How are you strong enough to?
I personally, I really sort of, what's the word? Cater or really selective with how my social media feed looks. Yeah, if I feel like there's an account that makes me feel like shit, I'll just mute it for a little while or come back to it.
Yeah.
Or take a break from social media.
So it's just that ability to block out certain things that are causing negativity.
Yeah, make sure something gives you value when you go on social media, because otherwise you just sink a ton of time and then feel like shit at the end of it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's just I always need to remember or remind myself it's, it's marketing as well. People can paint a certain lifestyle through social media, and that may not necessarily be their actual life, but they're painting a lifestyle that in society's eyes is what is ideal and what people want or what they crave, and it's not real. And that's what I always need to remind myself, because you're like, you look at stuff and you're like, that makes me feel insecure or makes me doubt myself and my performance and things like that. But it's always just, for me, it's coming back to the spot where this is social media, this is a handcrafted lifestyle that someone has painted.
Yeah, it's like a highlight reel.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, you're never going to see someone first thing in the morning when they're looking like shit.
I always remind myself that you're comparing your B-roll, I guess the word is, to someone's highlight reel.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool.
And I think another sort of side topic on that is, at this age now, sort of late 20s, early 30s, everyone's kind of set on their path in terms of, if you wanted to be a wrestler or whatever, you wanted to work for the WWE, that's not going to happen anymore. So you're kind of set now. So I think a lot of people that I've been speaking to are feeling a bit unfulfilled, I'd say, because they know that what the path they're on now is kind of going to be it for the next little while anyway. Have you ever thought about that this is kind of it now? And does that make you scared?
Oh, all the time. Like, I think you think about it and you're like, can I survive my career for the next 30 years? I've only been working 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it comes back to, finding your passion. And I think there are pressures. I know people who do, example, you do a certain subject in uni or so follow a certain career just because you felt like a pressure to do it. And ultimately, I think it's finding what you love and being able to do that. Because I think if you do something just because of society pressure or someone's pressuring you or image or whatever, you're going to burn out. You're going to feel
you're never
empty.
going to be enough.
Yeah, you're going to burn out eventually because you're not doing what you love. And I mean, when I was younger, I still have an obsession. I love planes. And when I was younger, I always wanted to be a pilot, like a commercial pilot. I was told that you need good eyesight, and my eyesight's really bad. And you needed to be good at maths, coming back to maths again. But I was really bad at maths. But sometimes I'm like, should I go get a pilot license? And I think it's also the fear of coming out of what's comfortable. I think when you're in a career for quite a while and you're starting to develop and grow roots in that career, it's scary. I think uprooting yourself and doing something completely different. But I would say, if that's really what you want, go for it. I think you got to push yourself out of the comfort zone every now and then.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's good advice for someone who's potentially, trying to, say, succumb to what they think is going to make either their parents or, friends and family impressed or proud of them.
Yeah.
And kind of just do because at the end of the day, you're going to be stuck doing it. No one else is going to, draft your emails or whatever it is for you. You're going to have to do it yourself in whatever you do.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think the best person to get advice is from yourself, about yourself. Because no one knows yourself as well as you do yourself. So, if you, for example, for me, I think I've been very career focused in probably the last 5 years in trying to get where I am now and even further. But, you focus on yourself so much that personally for me, it's kind of like, okay, how can I focus on someone else, or how can I focus on something else that will give back to community and society, and whether that's, doing charity work or something that's involved with a hobby that I love is, something that I'm looking at, exploring. So, and I think you find fulfillment in that area as well.
Would you say now you're happy, content?
I think I'm content.
Which is good because, like I said, a lot of people I'm speaking to aren't. Maybe I'm just talking to some sad people, but I think, at this age, a lot of people aren't content because, like you say, you expect to have a certain whatever on the resume at this point in life. And it would be refreshing to hear that you are content.
Yeah, so I think I'm content. And there's definitely areas in life that I'm not content with. But I think generally, and I'm pretty happy where I am.
It's good, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk then about, so you're content with most areas of your life. Would you say that you're ready to settle down? And I guess what sort of women do you tend to go for? And I'm more talking from, let's start with a racial point of view.
Yeah.
Did you picture yourself with an Asian person growing up? And secondly, what do you like?
Wait, are you single?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't something.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think race...
does it factor into
I think it does.
who you're attracted to? Yeah.
And I think while I don't want to say it, I think it does.
Yeah.
And I think it's a preference for an Asian. And sometimes I ask myself why. And I think it does come back to a lot of morals and just cultural upbringings that are quite similar.
Yep.
But in that sense, I'm not saying I'm strictly Asian only.
Yep.
As well. But, I think in terms of looking for a partner, really just someone who I think is very much similar to me in the sense that I think I value time. I would say I'm a pretty busy person, so time is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
But also being able to, spend quality time together, but also be somewhat also independent, I think is one of the big things for me.
Yep.
One of my old bosses actually said to me, like, working as a lawyer, I mean, my old boss, he worked long hours. Like, he would come in at like 4 a.m, crazy. But he used to say to me, you need to find someone who understands those are the demands of your career sometimes. And I think that was a really good piece of advice. Is I don't intend to work from 4 a.m, but
Sometimes it happens.
yeah, sometimes it happens.
That's what you're saying.
And just having that life partner who understands that, and that's the demands of your career sometimes.
Just empathetic of that.
Yeah, but obviously not selling yourself to your work.
Yes.
And still valuing your relationship, your wife and your kids and your family, but.
I guess it's important to make sure they don't feel neglected.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm still very much, family first. But obviously there are other aspects of life that, I think you can't have everything at once kind of thing. Like sometimes
Bit of give and take.
Yeah, some give and take, but yeah.
I suppose, something has to give as well. And if you've got someone who's understanding of the requirements of your career and your job, I suppose that would be an ideal sort of match.
And I mean, I see it with my family too. With my mum and my dad were apart quite a lot because dad worked overseas. So, that was a sacrifice they made for a lifestyle that he could give us.
Yep.
But I mean, of course, there are times when, you want your family to be together physically, but there are gives and takes, and I guess people value different things in different ways.
So has it been, I guess, because you mentioned earlier that you've been focusing on your career for the last 5 years. I guess during that period, dating's been, put on hold or taken a backseat?
I have dated around over the period, but I think it wasn't at the front of...
Wasn't forefront.
Yeah, it wasn't the forefront of my mind. And I think I was pretty secure with myself, knowing that I didn't need a partner to feel complete or feel in the sense
Validated.
Validated, but I think as I get older and my friends start to get married and have kids, it definitely is something that's moving towards the front of my mind. And I think at this stage of life, it's really, I think I've got two paths. It's chase a career overseas and put settling down on the back bench, or settle down, find a girlfriend, find a wife kind of thing, settle down, maybe have kids. What
are you leaning towards? I suppose see what happens, right?
See what happens, but I think
the right person comes.
Yeah,
it depends on the person too.
The right person comes around.
They may want to go just overseas as well.
Yeah.
And then everyone wins.
Double winning. Yeah. No, but I think at this stage of life, I think settling down is definitely something that I've thought about more than I used to. And I think because part of it is I'm content with my career, and I think the projection of my career is on where I want it to go. So my focus isn't all on there anymore.
And any advice for younger Arron? So you've gone, not necessarily about dating, but just about, I suppose, life in general. Like, so I'm pretty happy to hear that you are content and, you're happy with where everything is at, because, like I said, it's pretty refreshing to hear. Looking at everything going back, is there any advice you'd give to yourself? Not to say you change, but just to help yourself, I suppose, get to where you are now.
Good one. Be adventurous, I reckon. I think...
What, younger Arron wasn't adventurous enough?
Travel to every country.
Yeah, 16.
I think maybe not...
Oh, did you mean different type of adventures?
Yeah, like not like travel.
We're talking about it.
Yeah. No, I think like don't be afraid to give things a go. I think I'm a pretty introverted person, so I'm very I think through things quite a lot before I make decisions on them.
Yep.
And I think that potentially may have had an effect on some some things in life. But I think, just give it a crack. While you're young, enjoy life.
So you're saying maybe, don't be so, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but cautious and try a few different things along the way. Is that
I think so. Don't be...
Say yes a bit more often?
Yeah, say yes. And don't be so worried about what other people think.
Yep.
Live life how you want to live it. Because,
it's your life at the end of the day.
It's your life. And if you feel fulfilled at the end doing what you want to do, then that's great.
Yeah, no, perfect, man. So Kev's just going to do a couple of short answer questions. It's kind of a rapid fire segment, but
sure.
Basically he'll ask you something, and then if we have this, don't think too much about it, but whatever comes to your head, we want to have a little bit of context to why you've said what you have.
At the same time, if you want to go more into it, you're welcome to.
I'm not good at these, but I'll give it a go.
That's right.
All right, Arron. So what's the first thing you do in the morning?
Look at my phone.
Damn.
What are you looking for? What are you looking for? Notifications, messages, news?
Honestly, work emails. Like that's 100% honest.
Just to see if anything's
literally
on fire.
switch off my alarm.
Yeah.
Look at my work emails. But I think it's also to mentally prepare myself for the day.
Yep.
If I wake up and there's 20 emails, then it's like it's a busy day. But when there's none, you're like
I think you and I are quite similar. So I was talking to Alex about this, and she gives me shit all the time about the first thing I do is check my phone. Kid you not, it's because I'm checking the weather, because I want to know what I have to wear for the day, because I want to know, is it going to be cold? Do I need to wear a sweater? Do I need to not?
That's true.
And that's honestly
That
the
makes
first
sense.
thing I check.
Yeah.
Why don't you check that the night before and then just have
It can
your
change
clothes set
overnight,
up?
Kev.
It can change overnight.
And also, while we're doing this, because we haven't done this one with you, let's do a bit of a three-way of sorts.
Sounds good.
What do
First
you
thing I do.
What do you do first thing in the morning?
I'm the same. I just wake up and I just check usually social media feeds. I do that
See
for
the
about 15
DMs
minutes.
as populous as you're hoping.
15 minutes. I do the opposite to you. So I check the weather the day before and have my clothes set out.
Oh, right, okay. Well,
I'm the same. I don't check the weather, but I have my clothes ready the night before.
The night before.
It's because I'm not a morning person.
fair enough.
I used to be a night person, but I've slowly moved into being a morning person. I wake up at like 5:30 every day now.
See, I used to do that, but I've got done a couple of times where the night before they're like, it's going to be 27. I'm like, cool, no
Okay,
sweater,
fair enough.
whatever. And I get in and I'm freezing.
So you've been burned.
I've been burnt. Cool. Next one.
All right. Arron, unlimited money or unlimited life?
Unlimited life.
I feel like that's an easy one. Who
Yeah.
made up that?
Um,
With unlimited life, you can have
Unlimited
see, the
money.
thing with
effectively.
unlimited life, then everyone can die on you. Everyone can. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, but and then time just means nothing. It's purely your own. What would you say you would take
I'd
unlimited
take
life?
unlimited life every
That's
time.
really deep, by the way.
That
Yeah.
is-
Yeah.
It's meant to be.
I think with unlimited life, after the first maybe 2 lifetimes, I think you'd develop that thick shell, that thick skin.
You're just
where
used to being
you're
alone.
just used to every 60 years.
It's like vampires.
Because think about it like this. You know how right now in life, the people that you were really in touch with in high school, you're probably in touch with maybe 2 or 3 of them. You've lost contact with the rest. How is that any different when you increase the scale of unlimited life?
Yeah,
and
it's
then
true.
think about you've been married once, you've had kids, they've all passed on, and you can decide whether you want to do it again.
Would you feel?
I think it's the same thing.
You reckon you'd be like a loner?
You would
I
have.
don't
You would.
think you would
I
be.
think you would.
Nah, I reckon you could be a social butterfly.
After 1 or 2
Why would you
lifetimes,
become a loner?
because you just know that no matter how much time and good experiences you put with them, they're just gonna go.
Nah, what? I have a totally different outlook. If you have unlimited life,
Do you?
you could choose this lifetime, I'm going to be a firefighter. And I'm going to have 4 kids. You could do whatever you want to do.
But
And
the
then
thing
the
is,
second lifetime.
all those things are meaningless because you know that no matter what, you can do it at some point. But
because
anyway,
there's no time scale.
all right, that's the next one.
Or what's your argument for unlimited money?
To be honest, I wouldn't have a good answer for either. I would go unlimited money because I would want to enjoy the life that I have with people
So
and
you that finite time.
enrich their lives while I could. Otherwise, it's meaningless, right? If time is unlimited, then what you're doing, like what we're doing right now,
So you're saying you
Just
wouldn't
do
wake
it
up.
at
If you had
any
unlimited time, you'd just sleep in for a week.
probably.
Sounds good.
All right, fair enough. Physical strength or mental strength?
Mental.
Yep. I think that one's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah,
Yeah, with that one too. Yeah, no, I'm the same.
You've already
Mental
got physical strength.
Yeah.
So.
What about you?
Yeah, definitely mental strength.
Okay. Giving gifts or receiving?
My selfishness wants to say receiving, but I'm gonna go with giving.
It's the more PC answer.
Yeah.
I'm receiving. I much prefer receiving gifts. I'll be confident to say
I think
that.
I'm the same. Yeah, receiving.
Yep.
I definitely receive gifts first before I give. I think I noticed that too. Would you be friends with yourself? The deep one. And I guess if you say no, why not?
Yeah. This one, we really want to know why and why not.
Yeah.
Well, this is a hard one.
Yeah, this is a deep
Yeah.
one. Even if you say yes, I guess.
I'll give you guys time to answer. I
Yeah.
would, because I reckon I'd be a good friend.
Yeah, I'd be friends with myself. 100%.
Yeah. I like myself.
I like myself.
I'm an alright guy. So Aaron, would you be friends with yourself?
Is there anything I don't like about myself?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah. I like to think my friends like me.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
No one's told
If
me
not, I
otherwise.
mean, yeah.
I might come back on that. I don't know. I'm going to try to think of an answer where I'd say no. Would you prefer to sleep in or midday nap?
Sleep in. For
Ethan?
sure.
Unfortunately, with 2 young kids, it's not even possible.
Yeah.
So I'll take the midday nap.
I'm the same, midday nap. I love my midday naps.
I can't do them.
They
Like,
feel so good.
I take a
feel
nap.
crap in the afternoon.
Yeah, I take a nap and it's like 5 hours later.
I feel like, so this is my strategy with it. You got to set a timer for about 30 minutes. It's a power nap.
The optimal power nap.
Yeah, so you got to work out how long it takes you to fall asleep and
Yeah.
add that to about 22 minutes, 20 minutes. And that gives you
Yeah.
that perfect sort of, you wake up refreshed and not sluggish. Yeah. Another trick I found was, I think this was from the military. I read, if you sleep with your feet up or elevated, that helps you, I don't know, sleep quicker or sleep better.
Right. Doesn't try that.
Give it a try.
Yeah, tonight.
After this podcast. All right. If you received an envelope with the date of your death in it, would you open it? Oof. I like these.
Yeah, it's good.
Yes, I would.
Straight away? Or would you leave it for a while?
Straight away. What if the date was like tomorrow?
But that would obviously change the way you'd live your life, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So would you as well, Kev?
Just gives you the date. I don't think I would. I think I want to know.
Yep. I'm probably the same. I probably wouldn't want to know.
Do you feel like you'd be living in not fear, but like you'd be like skeptical of everything? You'd be like, oh, that car's gonna hit me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
On
die.
that day,
Yeah.
geez, that would be a
Yeah,
rough day.
right. But if you knew the date, you know you're set till that
Yeah.
date. But then, say a year's closing in on that date. I guess because you seem very future minded. You seem very planned out. So it really
Yeah.
helps you set up
I-
everything to the date. That's what I'm.
I love
Prepare
to
for
pl-
death.
I love to plan. So if I got an end date, I'll plan until then.
I can just picture Aaron. He's got like 20 years worth of calendars. He'll just throw away the other 10 if he finds out that he's done in 10 years.
I guess I don't know the psychology behind this question, but I guess it's to remind yourself that
Time is
are you
finite.
living the best way you can?
And time is finite.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is something I actually read recently too, just to live more present and realize too that you don't have unlimited time.
For example, if it was 2 weeks from now, we would 100% all quit our jobs.
I'd probably leave this podcast right now.
I don't blame you, man. I certainly wouldn't be here. So, yeah, that's a cool one. Last one.
Yeah, I like that. All right, Aaron, if you could have a measuring scale, I'm just going to say stat. If you could have a stat above everyone's head, what would you want it to measure? Money, happiness, for example. What would you want above people's heads if you could see it?
And only you could see it.
Yeah, only you can see it.
Man, this is a hard one. I think I would want something that like would tell you something like really deep about them. But I don't know. Oh, it's so hard, this one.
I think of some funny ones.
Let's see.
I think there are funny ones, but would I want it?
Would I want to know?
Yeah, would I want to know?
There's body count. How many times they masturbated.
That would be funny.
Some other good ones.
Anything like that, like, I don't know. Yeah.
How many times you've crossed paths with that person? That'd be an interesting one.
Oh,
Imagine
yeah.
you're walking through the city and you see 10. Like, oh, I felt like I've seen that person somewhere.
It'd be a little
Can you think of anything that you'd want to measure?
Yeah, I can't think of anything at the moment, actually. You go first.
I got another one. What if it had the date of when they will die? You know how we go back to the envelope? If you could see
would
everyone's
be-
date of
Could
death.
you see yourself?
Probably not. I mean, if you look in the mirror, I guess maybe you could. Then you get a double whammy then. You need the envelope. That would be interesting. Could you imagine if it was like a timer and you see like 10, 9,
That would
8,
be
and
rough.
someone gets...
It's like that movie, is it In Time?
Yeah, I
The
think it's
Justin
in time.
Timberlake
Yeah,
movie. It was actually a pretty good
farm.
movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, to be honest, I couldn't think of a good answer for this. It's meant to just be more like,
Tongue-in-cheek.
what
Yeah.
does someone actually value about other people? So if, for example, someone said how much money they have, then that's all they care about, or how much, whatever, how many people they've killed, like just
Yeah.
stupid things like that. So I guess we don't really have a concrete answer on that.
I got another good one. One that moves like this very quickly. It could be like how happy they are. So like say you're on a date with someone, you can see whether it's going
yeah.
well.
I feel like there's a movie.
It's like a Digimon.
Yeah. Or like how horny
Yeah.
they are. You can see how...
Oh yes, that would be handy.
and bail on this date right now.
And then as you say things, it obviously moves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, actually,
I reckon
yeah,
that would be a good stat.
It'd be like those the customer satisfaction things you do, like the
Yeah,
smiley faces.
But it's on live.
Yeah.
So imagine you're like at work, a client dinner or something, and you can see like the satisfaction going up and down.
So potentially a satisfaction meter. Actually,
Yeah, I think so. That'd be pretty good.
Bad,
yeah.
And as it changes as things
Having
change.
sex with someone, you see the satisfaction going down.
You can up the ante a little bit.
Shit, change technique.
Oh, jeez. Arron, so the last thing, man, before we let you go. So what's next for you then?
Well, what's next? I think it's
Is there anything you're working on?
not right at the moment. I've been really keen. So one of my hobbies is I actually love scuba diving.
Yeah, check his Instagram,
Yeah.
Arron.
Arron-y.
He's got some diving pics on there.
But I've been really keen to try do some, or look into some like conservation work.
Oh, right.
And I think like I've been wanting to use my own personal annual leave for work to do some of that stuff out in the Great Barrier Reef. I think just mixing a bit of like hobby, as like what I said before, doing something to give back to community as well, and not necessarily always just about me.
Yep.
But yeah, so
Cool.
watch that space.
That'd be interesting. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
it'd be cool. We're planting like little like frags of coral back in the reefs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Every year, you go back and check on it.
Yeah, check on it, see how it's going.
I like it.
Anything else you got upcoming?
No, not really, actually. I think watch your space. Yeah, follow my Instagram.
Everyone follow his Instagram.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I'm on private, so.
Oh, yeah, to get that changed.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Send him a request.
Send me
to
a
follow.
request.
otherwise in the morning, instead of checking emails, you'd be checking requests
Yeah.
to accept.
Too easy, man. Thanks a lot for the time and really appreciate it.
No
And
worries. Thanks
Yeah,
for having
thanks
me.
for coming
Awesome.
on. Yeah, it was a good chat.